last week with the reversal of Roe v. Wade. So when it was overturned on Friday, there were a lot of lawmakers out there, particularly GOP, who were making it known that this is going along with their fundamental principles and what they'd like to see, particularly as it concerns oppressing people based on race, largely Black people. For example, check this out. This is from Mary Miller. She's an Illinois representative, and she was essentially just showcasing her true feelings on her pro-life stance.
President Trump, on behalf of all the MAGA patriots in America, I want to thank you for the historic victory for life in the Supreme Court yesterday.
Again, that's what it's about. It's about white life, uplifting white life, preserving white life. But of course, it's male white life that they are looking to uplift by virtue of the fact that they do want to see women oppressed, primarily women and birthing people, such that they are no longer in the workplace, that they do not have as many options, and that they are in a position of being subjugated to primarily serve men. And of course, Miller, not to be outdone, well, Senator John Cornyn out in Texas, he made it known that he wants to take it a step further when it comes to reversals. In response to President Obama's remarks about Roe being overturned, well, the Texas senator quote tweeted with "Now du Plessis versus Ferguson, Brown v. Board of Education." Yeah, that really screams pro-segregationist as far as I'm concerned. And of course, Cornyn would go on to double down with his tweet. He also put out this saying, "Thank goodness some SCOTUS precedents are overruled." Because of course, the thought that there would be any kind of progress in our nation that would make it so that individuals who are from oppressed or marginalized groups have more opportunity and more leveling the playing field, shall we say, that is something that he sees as an affront to him, evidently. And also, we've seen this behavior coming out for some time. Back in March, Senator Mike Braun, well, he would reveal his feelings. And of course, he decided to go on and attack Loving v. Virginia. That's that Supreme Court case that essentially made interracial marriage bans miscegenation. Well, it made it illegal. Watch this.
So you would be okay with the Supreme Court leaving the question of interracial marriage to the states?
Yes, I think that that's something that if you're not wanting the Supreme Court to weigh in on issues like that, you're not going to be able to have your cake and eat it too. I think that's hypocritical.
About Griswold versus Connecticut.
Well, you can list a whole host of issues. When it comes down to whatever they are, I'm going to say that they're not going to all make you happy within a given state, but that we're better off having states manifest their points of view rather than homogenizing it across the country as Roe versus Wade did.
Yeah, Griswold, that's that case that says you can have your own contraception, which is also great in case you don't necessarily want to have children, so you can do that whole family planning thing. But of course, this is also something that the GOP wants to take away in addition to the right to marry whomever you want, regardless of their skin color. And I would like to think that Clarence Thomas, despite all of his antics, that he seems to be okay with that. But then again, the man may not know that he's Black, I don't know. I definitely do know that these lawmakers, Braun, Miller, Cornyn, and the rest of them in the GOP, that they really view this reversal of Roe v. Wade as being the beginning to rolling back the civil rights that serve primarily marginalized communities and that chip away at any kind of ideology of white supremacy. Again, this is all about that white Christian nationalist agenda and furthering it. Ben.
Yeah, I think the most important fact for people to understand is this has always been a violent white supremacist movement, period, stop, since its beginning. Quite literally, the way that right wingers got here was to make Democrats afraid. Literally, they would terrify the Democrats out of even mentioning the word abortion because they assassinated doctors, they bombed Planned Parenthoods, they sent out death threats with a great regularity. They would send, they literally would picket outside of clinics and shout like vitriolic, hateful things at the people who are trying to go to those clinics, even just for like healthcare outside of getting an abortion. This has always been a fundamentally violent white supremacist movement. And what is happening right now on the Supreme Court, what is happening right now with these Republicans is they are doing everything within their power to legitimize that violence, and they are trying to legitimize it through formalizing it through the state. On top of that, we have to touch on something, because if you think that they won't go that far, oh, they won't go that far. Literally, Amy Coney Barrett, before she was in the Supreme Court, when she was ruling on a previous case that was unrelated to voting rights, went out of her way to say that she thought, and this case was about gun rights, she thought that it should be harder to take away gun rights than voting rights, because she believes that only virtuous citizens should be allowed to vote. Now think about that for a minute. What do these white supremacists think in their mind when you say virtuous? I think the answer is fairly clear, and that is obviously the direction that they want to bring our country.